Greetings, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to this latest edition of Tales from Outer Space. And as always, I hope that you enjoy. Story number 1. Fireworks, written by Weirdo5255. Outside my window, there was a muffled explosion. Looking up to the sky, I leaned back on my haunches. Humans really did like explosions. But then, it was Unification Day for their planet. I suppose some merriment was in order. Already dark outside, I glanced at the timepiece. Even after having been on Earth for 10 orbits around its primary, I hadn't gotten used to the shorter days. About 2/3 of the length of those of Yernik. It was just enough to throw off my sleep patterns, and I was adjusted. The newest batch of delegates and their broods were still adapting. Marching out of my office, the human receptionist Clara looked up from her computer terminal. "You done for the day, Tarnan?" I nodded, or used with my approximation of it for her benefit. My head being fixed in place, all I could do was bend at the human equivalent of the waist. "I am." "You're going out to celebrate. I might take the brood, although I loathe to give the youngsters any more of that sugar your culture favors during these events. They did not sleep for nearly 4 days last time." "Ah, but they were so cute. You do not have to deal with them as they grow." She laughed. "Maybe not, but still cute though." I spun my photoreceptor, opening the skin around the circumference of my head, letting in the light all around me for a moment. Humans had eyes fixed in front of them, which, with the ability to move both their eyes and necks, was no hindrance. But mine were fixed in a ring around my head and brain. Small flaps of skin in place to protect them and allow me to concentrate when needed. Still, despite my eyesight being far worse than the humans, I could see Clara hesitating. It had taken me a long time to pick up the human body language. It was very subtle, but analyzing it was useful during negotiations. "Do you need something, Clara?" I asked. "The reports aren't done yet, sir, and I'm only halfway through them. Can I turn them in tomorrow? I have a date." Her voice pitched up and quickened at the end of a sentence, and it took me a moment to decipher it. "You did not request this night off." She shook her head, her skin turning red, now a sign of embarrassment rather than mirth in humans. "I wasn't planning on having a date. My friend set me up." I stomped my hoof on the floor, an equivalent to a human chuckle. "Yes, but I need them by tomorrow night, before transmission time. Go and woo your mate." Her blush deepened. "Thanks, Terman. Make sure you feed those youngsters some sugar." She grabbed her bag and moved down the corridor at a speed that was for a human rather rushed. I stomped my foot again, and leaving the official wing of the embassy and walking outside, I approached a small abode that was my brood's nest, or house, as the humans call them. The embassy was old enough that when it had first been built, the space it took up on the outskirts of the city had not been an issue. Now, though, the sprawling compound was in the heart of the city. Some didn't like it, but I enjoyed the energy it gave everything. Humanity had been an ally for over 300 cycles by this point, and were the only other sentient race that we had encountered, despite both our fleets having investigated over 500 systems. We were most likely long-lost genetic cousins, considering the proximity of our two worlds in the heavens and the similarities in form. Whose planet had originated life was still in debate amongst the scientists, but for the major populace, it hardly mattered. Both my species and humanity had been overjoyed to find a kin amongst the stars. The youngsters burst forth from the nest before I could open the door, my mate behind them already ready to leave the compound, judging by the modified human attire that she was sporting. I was due a change of garments as well. The traditional robes I was wearing would be hot and cumbersome amongst the crowds in the streets. "Everyone ready to go?" I asked. Inton stamped both of his feet, and his photoreceptor narrowed. "I want cotton candy." "Cotton candy, and maybe, if you behave and have only one," I said. Inton looked disgruntled for a moment, but waved side to side a moment later, an affirmation. I looked at Corinne. "Anything you want?" I asked her. "I want to fire off an explosive," she said. I frowned. I had thought the proclivity for using explosives as forms of entertainment had been exclusive to humanity. You want to set off an explosive? I asked. A firework, insisted Grillen. I looked up at my mate. She's been begging all day, said Denron with a sigh. I looked down at the youngster. I will consider it. My offspring wanted to play with explosives, and I was seriously considering letting her do so. I had been on Earth for far too long. I would have to test the firework first, make sure that it was safe before she could do one. End of story. Story number 2. The Interview, written by Phil at the Game. Excerpts are taken from the interview with board member Kazayu of Planetary Dispute Council. Interview. And welcome back. And thank you, Rick, for explaining how the Planetary Dispute Council arbitrates planet ownership between two parties. We are continuing our interview with board member Kazayu. We would like to start on the controversial ruling by the Council. Until last week, there has been a 50-50 split as to whether or not the humans should be allowed to settle on the recently discovered planet. When board member Jules retired and you took her place, everyone assumed that you would be continuing her steadfast vote against humans settling on a new planet. Why then, may I ask, 3 days ago, did you vote for the humans? Board member Kitkazua's antennas drooped in a slight. I had no reason not to allow the humans access to a new world. Because of how the humans behave, everyone knows the temperament of the humans. They are quick to violence, barbaric in many of their practices. There are many stories of humans fighting each other just for sport. And let's not get into their choice of entertainment. I've read that one of their most famous movies is about a man going about killing other men just because someone killed his pet, dog, I believe. I believe I've seen that movie. I don't think the reviewer understood what the movie was getting across. But never mind. I've seen much of the humans. I am very old compared to someone like you. I was here before the humans, and I will be here when they become seen as just another species. How can you say that? I've seen the statistics of crime and violence in areas where humans are prevalent. How can we accept a people so backward and barbaric? I have seen those statistics too. I was worried about that too until I looked into the crimes. Half of the crimes are the humans misunderstanding a culture's do's and don'ts, like Anzano and the law against eating and walking around. My kind eats and walks around. I can think of at least 24 species that have no problems with that. The only difference is that most of us has training in different cultures. Humans don't have that benefit. As for violence, they too misinterpreted. Most of the instances of violence have been in defense of another person. Granted, some of the times it was a misunderstanding, but humans are quick to come to others' aid if needed. But violence is not the best option. A dialogue is so much better. Dialogue is what civilized galaxy is based on. So much conflict has been avoided thanks to everyone's willingness to stop and talk. None of the galaxy's problems have been solved through violence. Board member. Until I stood erect in anger. None! I know you are not very old by my standards, but have you forgotten about the Grong? Have you forgotten that my homeworld was bombarded by them? Well, the galaxy tried to get them to talk. And when you finally got them to say anything, they said that they don't talk to their food. Have you forgotten that when the galaxy finally got off its collective asses, you couldn't stop them? You couldn't stop them zip to zip. You had to pause them to even have a chance. No one was able to effectively do so. Then the humans volunteers, they volunteered something no one was willing to do to risk knowing of the casualties. The humans have one of the smallest populations of the known interstellar races. They knew that they were going to face huge losses, but the galaxy was in danger, and someone had to step up. That they did. It has been almost 60 years, and the humans have only just recovered from their losses. They may be willing to be violent, but they try to do it only for the right reasons. Last year, what happens again? A threat appears, fabricated, I must add, but as soon as we asked, they were willing to risk it all for the sake of the galaxy. We were just lucky the Hymir are easily impressed by big warships. Those Volpanese have proven to be talented in the medical field. It would have been a staggering loss if we had never gotten to know them. If you still think that humans don't deserve a new world, I feel that you have allowed yourselves to be blinded by your prejudice. They have earned it. I will continue to support them in this. The board member unfolds his legs and leaves the interview. End of story. The algorithm reckons you should be watching this video next, and I recommend that you should be always watching my video. So, click with energy! And yes, clicking that does help the channel. Thank you very much. I just want to give a quick thanks to the Tier 5 patrons and channel members. Alithia, Barky, Fudic Yol, Cam Maxwell, Caspar Onholtz, White Band 420, Lord Asrakal, Arcadian, and Oakfield.